But, you know, that episode where she and Shannon went on the whole anti-gay tirade, I was like, bitch, no. If I had fucking known that shit had happened, I would have cut the fuck out of that girl from the jump.
Everybody go. Everybody go. Everybody go. Everybody go. Everybody go. Everybody go. Everybody go.
What is going on, everybody? This is Oliver Twixt here, your nerd boy cutie, reporting for duty, here to do the Lord's work once again. And I am happy to announce I am finally on Cameo. Listen, y'all aggravated those people. They sent me the invite, and I have happily accepted. So you bitches can now book the nerd for some birthday shout-outs, words of encouragement, anniversary, Christmas, Halloween, Hanukkah, Easter, Chinese New Year, all the things. I cannot wait to greet you guys. What is going on, y'all? Our video is about to begin in a couple of seconds. Before it does, jump over to the live chat that's happening right now, where you can talk to me and some of our other friends all around the world about the things we love to talk about. I want to see you in there. Hurry up right now. What's going on, everybody? This is Oliver Twixt, your nerd boy cutie, always reporting for duty to do the Lord's work once again. And I am sitting here with a judge, an inaugural judge of the show we love to keep on talking about, America's Next Top Model, Cycle 1 judge, Beau. What's going on?
Mr. Twixt,
Yeah!
how are you?
This is so exciting. I'm so grateful that you've agreed to do this with me. Like, how does it feel to still be speaking about a show that happened at this point almost like 20 years ago?
I mean, I still am surprised by it all the time. It's so funny, right? I mean, you don't see that level of interest in, I mean, I don't know, it's not my world, but I don't see people like doing this kind of stuff for like American Idol or like another reality show.
Not yet.
Give them a minute.
Yes. And guys, when I contacted him at first, he was like, "Are you sure people want to hear from me?" But I'm like, "No, the fandom that I'm connected with through doing these videos want to hear from you. They want to hear any and everything about this show that, yes, we still love to this day."
I mean, God bless.
Yeah, so without further ado, I guess we're just going to jump on in it. This question is from wellness_by Nora. And they want to know what motivated you to get into fashion.
Oh, gosh. I had just graduated from high school, and I worked at a resort in Florida that became a popular photo shoot destination.
Mm-hmm.
And a catalog crew rolled in, and I wound up doing some like PA work for this crew, and I got to be friends with the stylist, and I was like, I had no idea there was a such thing. And I just remember being like, okay, your job is to like steam that caftan and put it on that girl and throw on a bangle. And I was like, I've been doing that for my girlfriend since I was 12 years old. Like, I could do that. And so I moved to New York. I like I said, I got to be friends with a few people on that crew. the hair and makeup guy wound up being my first boyfriend. And I started like assisting, and one thing led to another, and then I like through one stylist that I assisted, wound up working in the design department at Calvin Klein during fashion show weeks. And I met the woman that had been Calvin's like VP of advertising, or she was basically his in-house stylist for everything. And she went to become the fashion director at Harper's Bazaar. And I was like obsessed with her. And I went to assist her. I mean, just one thing kind of led to another, really.
Yes, that's exciting. So, of course, when Top Model first rolled out, we, the viewing audience, was told like this panel of judges are like the elite of the industry, which you guys were. What were some of like your biggest accomplishments and accolades before joining the Top Model panel in fashion?
I mean, my first story where I was credited as editor was actually with Tyra.
Okay.
Baby Tyra, and it was for like a kind of indie LA mag called Detour. And they did a Chrome Heart story. You probably don't even know the brand, but it was like this kind of like rock and roll leather and like chunky sterling silver jewelry brand. And they were like, they'll give Tyra some clothes if she'll do the shoot. But I remember thinking like that was like such a big deal for me, right? Because it was like my first time with the byline on a story, and it was like a huge model. And remember like Oribe came in to do her hair, and he had like his whole team. And we shot at night, I want to say, because I think Tyra had just gotten extensions done. And I remember this funny moment where the photographer was like, just arch your eyebrow. And she's like, I can't really do that right now. Because like she's been like pulled super tight. But all those things, like the first time you go to Fashion Week, and like back in the 90s, it was like this very kind of rarefied thing where it was just like press, buyers. It was like much less of a spectacle as it is now. But there are just those moments like that first time you're sitting in like a couture show in Paris and you're like, holy shit, this is happening. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm like, a kid from the South.
Yes. So you're growing as a professional in the fashion industry, and someone approaches you to become a part of this new show that had never been heard of, never been out. How did you become a judge on Top Model?
Okay, that's a bit of a long story, but
it's okay. It's okay.
So I didn't really want to do it. And here's the thing, like the little background, like, so I had, before Mary Claire, I'd been an editor at Mademoiselle, which is gone now. And like sort of like 2001 is when like producers on chat shows started reaching out to magazines and editors to come on and do segments. And and I did a couple while I was at Mademoiselle, and had really bad experience. And one, I wasn't even like the person going on air. I had just like styled and sort of put together a fashion show for her to hit talking points. And when I got the job at Mary Claire, I was like, here's the thing, I just don't want to do TV. And they were like, cool, there's like a fashion director and another editor, and they love doing it, so it's not going to be a problem. Um, and there were a couple little things that came up, and I was like, deal's a deal. And then I was shooting in Los Angeles. It was like the last shoot before Christmas break, and I was going to go with a girlfriend down to her little house in Palm Springs. And the night before we were going to drive down, I got a phone call from somebody at the magazine. They were like, I know you said you didn't want to do TV, but here's the thing. Tyra Banks is creating a new show, and it's basically like American Idol, but for supermodels. And she wants a fashion editor to be a judge, and she wants a guy. Because my first thing was like, well, the other two want to do TV, so let them do it.
Right.
And that's when she was like, no, she wants a guy. And I was like, well, deal's a deal. And they were like, well, the editor-in-chief wants you to do this, so you have to. And I was like, so then they called back and they were like, okay, you're going to have a meeting in the morning at CBS with Les Moonves, who I didn't know who that was at the time, but my girlfriend Catherine was like, why are you going in to meet the head of programming for CBS Studios for some like reality show? And I was like, well, I didn't know I was meeting the head of program. So I went in the morning, and it was like, you know, that kind of like LA thing where there's like this like frantic assistant who's like wringing his hands, and he's like, okay, Les is like very poker faced. So, you know, just don't sweat it. You're probably going to leave the meeting and think you didn't get it. But everything's going to be cool. Just, you know, and I was like, okay. So I went in to sit down with him, and he was basically like, so, you know, you watch American Idol? And I was like, I don't watch it, but I'm aware of it. And he's like, really what we're looking for is our own Simon Cowell. Like, we want like somebody that's like got a ton of experience, very steeped in the industry, but that's also not going to be afraid to just say it like it is and be really tough, even if it kind of might seem cruel or mean. And I was like, cool, there's my out. Because I was like, it's not my nature to like be mean or cruel, especially to like a young girl who's trying to break into my industry. And on top of that, I'm not just there as me, I'm representing Mary Claire. And I think the magazine's tagline at the time was, you know, the magazine for women of the world. So I was like, it wouldn't be appropriate for the magazine either. And so that was it. And I left them, and the you know, the hand-wringing assistant was like, okay, we're going to call you by 4:30 to let you know, period, the end. Like, but I left, and I was like, that was it. They want something that I, you know, I can't give them. And so we got down to my friend's house. I'm watching the clock. 4:30 rolls around, 5. Let's pop open a bottle of wine. And we went to take her dog to a dog park, and I remember it was dark. It seemed kind of late, and the phone rang, and it was a number I didn't have, and I was like, oh God. And it was Dana Gabriel, one of the producers, so sweet, who was like, hey, yay, we want you to join the team. And I was like, oh God. And that's how it happened. Then the next thing you know, it cut to, you know, I'm in a holding room at the Flat Hotel waiting to go for the first panel.
Nice. So you're telling us that there was a lot of hesitation. What were the saving graces, if any, that you deem like to be a benefit of you joining the show? Like, okay, I'm going to do this, but at least I'll get this out of this experience, or at least hope to get this out of this experience.
Oh gosh, I mean,
Chicago, what's the tea? Y'all have been begging for the nerds to come shake Chi-Town up, and I am officially touching down in your city, babies. Hosted by myself, the head nerd in charge, and renowned photographer Blake Martin, we are bringing you our first ever body party smoke and paint event, the 420 edition with a nude model painting experience. It's all going down Sunday, April 24th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Tickets are only $25 and include all your paint supplies, a shot of alcohol, and an edible on us. Feel free to bring your own bottle as well as your own enchanted grass, honey. Go to www.bodypartyshy.eventbrite.com to get your ticket while supply lasts. Chicago, I'm doing this for you, so come on out and Tootsie Roll with the nerd. See you there. Bye.
you know, what can you say? It's like, okay, well, I'm here, I'm doing it. So
Yeah.
But honestly, I got to be friends with Janice, which was fucking incredible. She's a wild woman. I love her so much.
Yeah, shout out to Janice.
Like the Hearst magazine folks were really good. Like the first couple of tapings, they sent somebody from their PR department to kind of like babysit and just like make sure everything was cool and copacetic. And then I was basically in my holding room on my own. And so I just would kind of like wonder. I remember trying to like pop into Kimora as she was getting her hair and makeup done to say hey, and she had like a full entourage, like bodyguards, and the bodyguards were like, no. And I was like, okay. And so then I would just start hanging out with Janice while she was getting her hair and makeup done.
Mm-hmm.
Kimura was so funny. She was like, oh, Beau, what happened? The thugs wouldn't let you in.
That's funny. So I have another question for you. This is from Jay Sanders. And they're saying, jumping right into the competition, they're asking, from what you can remember, were there contestants that you felt went home too soon and others that were kept way too long? If so, who?
You know, it's funny. So I just watched it for the first time after I got the call from you. So it was interesting to kind of like go back and see it again. Oh God, I can't remember the name of the first girl that was cut with the little bob.
Tessa.
I remember going back and rewatching that and being like, why did she go so soon? She seemed kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I also thought that Nicole actually had a kind of chic to her. And I was surprised that she didn't last longer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of personally really liked Ebony and I really liked Kessie, and it was a bummer to see them go. I mean, Janice was super into Ebony too. Janice was like, oh my God, it's the second coming of Grace Jones. She was like, really liked her. And she liked that. She had like a real like energy. And Kessie, bless her heart, like, you know, she was more reserved. Like she was really like trying to like take it in and learn. And I like, she just hadn't found her sparkle yet. And
Mm-hmm.
I wish if she'd had like a little more of like the ebony Adrienne energy.
In your face.
Not even so much in your face, but just like she was a little kind of shrinking violet, and I don't think that helped her
Uh-huh. Nah, I
in the
definitely
end.
agree. Well, on these ANTM chats, I do something every chat with usually the contestants where I do ANTM roll call and I name everyone who was on the cycle. And everyone down in the comments under your post said, well, since he was only on one cycle, Oliver, you must do a top model roll call with him. So I'm going to name everyone who was cast on the cycle. And you're just going to tell me what you remember, any fun stories, anything that comes to your brain, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right. So the first person we're going to start off with is Tessa. You already said you were shocked that she was like one of the first, well, the first person to go. What else do you remember about Tessa or want to say about Tessa?
Yeah, that was it. Like I just like rewatching it, I was like, God, seems like she went home a little soon. Um, but we had the judges had very little interaction with the girls. It was really just what you saw on panel.
Mm-hmm. How was the first ever judging? Was it hectic? Was it easy? How was it? What do you remember?
Uh, that fucking set. I
Horrendous?
mean, well, here's the thing, right? So, like, you could tell the network was really stoked about the show. Like, going in to see the head of program, you know what I mean? Like, you could tell they knew they had something on their hands, but it was definitely an example of that old saying, like, we're in the air while they're building the plane.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember walking into that set and being like, is this a judging panel, or are we here to take like the prom committee picture for the yearbook? It was like, what is this?
Uh-huh. The
And it's
curtains.
weird because like there clearly was money on that show, right? Like I've done enough budgets for my own photo shoots to know that like there's a lot of crew here, there's a lot of equipment. Um, and it just seemed real janky.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly it got much grander as the seasons went on.
Yeah. Next
Oh,
on
the other thing about getting cast is um, at some point in that process, they were straight up like, really, Tyra wanted Andre Leontali, and
from the very beginning.
from the beginning. She wanted Andre, RIP, and Vogue wouldn't clear him to do the show at the time, right? You sort of get it, right? It's a new show, no one's seen it, but that really baked my noodle too. It's like, oh my God, she wants this like icon, legend, and it's like, here I am.
Right. Right.
Yawn.
Next on the list is Katie Cleary.
I thought she should have been the first to go.
Oh my God. Okay.
She was the second one, right?
Mm-hmm.
To go. Yeah. I just was. I didn't. I didn't seem. I didn't. Wasn't impressed with her.
Okay. Next on the list is Nicole, who went home on a really great photo, I thought. She had that snake photo. I believe it was red. Her hair, she had her makeover. She had the blonde with, I think it was a black lip or red lip. It was a red lip. I thought her photo was dope, but she went home.
Honestly, those makeovers did not do any of those girls any favors. Don't you think?
Ebony's
Like
was nice.
Well, honey, she cut her hair herself after.
True.
Um,
Elise's black, like, pixie cut was nice.
yeah, but it just kind of like it was sort of like halfway a pixie. It wasn't like a full. It just they all. I thought they all. Again, like like no one knew what the show was, so it's not like, um, you know, they're gonna get Garen at the Bergdorf Goodman salon to do. You know what I mean? It's like
Mm-hmm.
they found some like fancy Upper East Side salon that would do it. So it's like, okay. But I thought they all kind of came out of it looking a little like Connecticut carpool momish. You know what I mean? Like Nicole's curly hair, I thought was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And like Robin, like that whole like your hair is too dark for your skin tone. Like, according to who? Like I thought her like raven hair was like really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just they came out looking like normie.
Next on the list is Ebony Hayes, who I've had the opportunity to chat it up with.
I watched that one. I loved her. That the whole like the rough skin. I mean, the other thing too is like they didn't get a lot of great photographers, I thought. And um so a lot of times I don't think those photographs did those girls any favors. And that whole thing from that one photographer about like her skin looking rough and like the retouch was hard, and it's like, mm, I didn't see it. So I I was like confused by that. Um, I thought she was like super edgy and super cool, and I was surprised she didn't go further, actually.
Mm-hmm. Next on the list is Giselle, who I've also had the chance to speak to as well.
Um, that was another one that I thought she had like a really cool look. Um, uh, that was another one like I really loved her. Um, that the snake photo shoot with her, like I think they were doing like a kind of a Blade Runner reference, right? Like she was remember, did you see that movie Blade Runner?
Uh-huh.
Remember there was the stripper with the snake,
Uh-huh.
and she was like she came off stage and she's like covered in rhinestones.
Uh-huh.
I think they gave that to Giselle, and then it was Adrienne that had the kind of Daryl Hannah painted over.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she had a very cool look. Um, and some of her pictures were great. Um, but you could kind of tell that she wasn't really there because she wanted to be a model. I think she was like looking to use it as a platform to go on into something else. And it seemed like, it seemed like you really wanted to make sure that the girl that won in the end really wanted to be a model.
Yeah. Yeah. Next on the list is Kizzy.
Oh my God, I loved her so much. Like I said, I just wish she like had a little more kind of like oomph. I was really shocked she didn't go farther, but looking back, like I said, I just watched it for the first time. And going back, honestly, I think it was that fucking Elyse in that confessional who was like, Cassie's gonna win because she looks like a baby Tyra. We know it's gonna happen. So so we know how this is gonna go. And I was like, that bitch probably fucking put a bullet in Cassie's head right there. I think the producers were like, oh shit, we can't, you know what I mean? And so I don't know.
Do you think Kizzy was performing at the level that some of the other girls were performing at? Like her pictures were as great as the other girls?
Well, see, that's the thing, right? It gets back to the photographer issue. Um, you can't. There's a lot of photographers that are great if you put like a perfectly trained working girl in front of their camera. There's not a lot of photographers that are good at directing a girl that is such a newbie.
Mm-hmm.
And Janice was the one that really was like, these pictures are all fucking horrible. But there were a couple of Kessie's pictures where it's like, she had like an arm out at a weird angle, and so it kind of like distorts in camera. But I was like, that's the photographer. That's nothing to do with her. It's like she just needs to be told, like, keep your arm forward as you're doing this gesture, whatever the thing was. But yeah, I thought a lot of some of the girls' performances could be chalked up to like maybe not some great photographers.
Gotcha. Next on the list is Robin Manning.
You know what? I really fucking like that girl until I watched the series.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, to be clear, she's fucking gorgeous.
Beautiful.
But that episode where she and Shannon went on the whole anti-gay tirade, I was like, bitch, no. If I had fucking known that shit had happened, I would have cut the fuck out of that girl from the jump. Because the thing is, like, I had a lot of experience working with plus size girls.
Mm-hmm.
Like before I got my first magazine job, I was going out on a lot of catalog shoots, and I worked a lot with those girls. I'm going to call them curvy girls now because plus size is like such a shitty term. But I remember thinking like, some of them were so beautiful, and I was like, why isn't their agent like sending them out on like, like beauty campaigns or, you know what I mean? It's like there was such a separation in the industry for such a long time. Mm-hmm. And so I've like really advocated for Robin a lot. And then like watching that show and all that anti-gay shit was just like, I was like, I cannot believe I stuck up for this girl as long as I did.
Wow. So you didn't know what was going on in the house at all. All you saw were the girls' performance and panel in their photos.
Yeah. I think we were purposefully kept out of all of that stuff. Mm-hmm.
Next on the list is Elyse.
I like a lot of people were impressed with her, and I was like, okay. It's like, didn't she kind of have the same look on her face in like every single one of her pictures?
Mm-hmm.
Like she just, I don't think she really brought that much to anything. I think she went on to like, which I think is funny. I think she went on to work a lot in Asia, mm-hmm. Which was like kind of like an old school, like model agent joke. Like, if a girl came in and she was like short or not that great, it was like, I think I could get you some work in Japan. So
oh my God. Gotcha. Yeah, I believe it was China, and she stayed in Hong Kong for years. And then the last thing we know is I think she moved back to Albuquerque and like removed herself from the face of the internet.
Didn't she get arrested at one point for beating up her boyfriend?
Oh my God, I don't know. I don't...
Google it.
Let's see. Let's see.
Pretty sure she was dating some guy in a band and like got busted for beating the shit out of him.
And here it is. She was dating Shin. I'm sorry, let me make sure I get my Shin's Cradle Off the Hook. Martin, okay. The group was Shin, and his name was Martin Crandall.
Yeah, so I was like, apparently Elyse is a little feisty.
Clearly. Next on the list is Shannon Stewart.
That's another one that like, looking back, and she went on the gay thing, and I was just like, fuck her. It's funny, like after I watched a couple of your videos, like she had done a live with Adrienne that popped up in my feed. So I saw that. And I love how Adrienne was like, she's not anti-gay, blah, blah. And I was like, girl, I watched her on the show say it's in the Bible, it's an abomination. Like those words literally came out of her mouth. Mm-hmm. So, but you know, regardless at the end, like I'm surprised she made it to the final two. In my opinion, it's just like, you know, she's like the most beautiful blonde girl you went to high school with. Mm-hmm. Does that mean like Ford Models needs to sign her? No.
Okay. Gotcha. And last out of the girls is the
Which PS also on that live that she did with Adrienne brought me up and she was like, yeah, he didn't like me. And I was like, really, bitch? Because like after the show aired and you signed with some like low rent model agency, I sat with you for an hour at Mary Claire and like went over your book and whatever.
What else stood out to you from that live that they did? Because that is one of the questions. The fans wanted to know, what was your reaction to their interview with each other?
Them kind of intimating that the whole thing about Elyse and her issues with food or whatever was conjured up by the producers. Because it wasn't. And like I said, we didn't know anything that was going on in the model apartment, but like we were definitely starting to hear stuff about like Elyse maybe having like a complicated relationship with food. Like, I'm not a doctor, I don't want to diagnose anybody, but she didn't look well to me. So yeah, that I was just like, yo, that is revisionist history. Like I literally just watched it and it was just like there were a couple of episodes where it was like nothing but the girls talking about and it seemed like organic conversation. I didn't feel like like somebody from production had stepped in and been like, talk about her eating disorder, you know. It seemed like organic conversation to me, so I don't know.
And last but not least is Adrienne Curry, the inaugural winner of America's Next Top Model.
I mean, I loved her. I like really from the jump, I was like, you know, Ebony, Cassie, Adrienne, and Nicole were the ones that I was like, really thought from like kind of from the beginning. And you know, I liked her kind of Midwestern accent.
Uh-huh.
You know, I thought she was like funny um and she, you know, she like, you know, had the body for it. She had an interesting face, and I thought she was like an interesting character.
Yeah.
Um, and she and I stayed in touch after the show. You know, I shot her for Mary Claire, and and then I was also contributing at the time to Mary Claire in Espanol, which is like a Spanish language edition that appears on like newsstands in the States and in areas where it's right for the demographic, and then also like Mexico and Central America. And I sent a couple of her pictures over to the editor, and I was like, I could get this girl for, you know, for a shoot, and she's like, no, she's great for us. And so I did like another big story with her for Mary Claire and Espanol, as well as the story in her. Um, uh, but you know, the funny thing too about her was that, like in that first episode, like as an editor, you do kind of like you do have to check stuff out, like what size is that foot, and like she told me that she had like she told me her shoe size, and I explained to her at the time, I was like, you know, it's hard because most shoe samples are sampled in a size 9, so like that's going to be tough for you, um, jamming your foot into those little shoes. And the funny thing was, like, sure enough, when we did the shoot for Mary Claire, they added a picture at the last minute. They used to do this feature called Splurge versus Steal, where it's like, here's the $2,000 Dolce & Gabbana zebra print flat, and here's the $45 version from Nine West.
Mm-hmm.
And she could not get her foot in that shoe.
Oh no.
I think she jammed, she got into the Dolce one, and I think we had to call round to Nine West to get permission to slit open the back of the Nine West and then retouch it after, so she could get her foot into it for the picture.
Oh wow,
But
Jesus.
that was funny from their live. She was like, oh, they went on and on about my feet, and it's like, and it was a problem when we shot together.
Okay.
But she's super cool. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
she wound up living like around the corner from me in the East Village. Like we hung out.
Uh-huh.
She's like a fun girl to like go out and have a few drinks
I
with.
bet. Oh, I bet. I bet she is an experience. Next on the list is Miss J. Alexander, runway diva coach extraordinaire.
Okay, so I think the thing that nobody realizes is like Jay is like 7 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
Like he is super tall. And he's like super handsome. So it's like, you know, when he enters a room, it's like, oh wow, okay. And funny as fuck.
Uh-huh.
He and Janice like cracked me up the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were times where I feel like production was starting to get a little pissed with me because Janice would just say something and I would just break.
What about Mr. J. Manuel?
Well, he was Tyra's makeup artist.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I, you know, initially knew him. And then the show where he was on, the episode where he was on panel, all of a sudden he came in like a full face of makeup, and I was like, whoa, Jay. And then I was like, oh shit, that's what they kind of are like, you know, I'm just like in my Oxford shirt and I'm not like a fashion plate myself. And then I was like, oh, they want like flamboyance.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he was good for the show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's funny, right? Like after he and Nicole kind of got into that little tussle, it's like, wasn't she cut immediately?
She went
So yeah,
bye-bye.
I think the lesson was learned very early on by the girls, like, don't get into it with Mr. J.
Mm-hmm. Next on the list is your fellow judge, Kimora Simmons.
I mean, I loved her. I mean, she's gorgeous. I mean, she
Beautiful.
literally, was closing Chanel shows at like 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
She ran a super successful business. She's just like complete package.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. There was a director there for the first few episodes, who wasn't very nice. I remember there was a thing very early on where I think like one of the tabloids, like I want to say like the Inquirer, had kind of gotten wind about the show kind of shooting at this hotel. And so one day we come in and the sort of mean director pulls everybody in and explains that like, I think they faked production badges to get in, and they were trying to like get scoop. But he was like, if anybody here leaks anything to the press, we're gonna fucking ruin your lives. And I was like, okay. Meanwhile, we signed non-disclosure agreements with a penalty of like $1 million. And I was like, dude, do I look like I have a fucking $1 million to give you? Like, anyway, he was, I remember being really annoyed with him too. Like he was like, not very nice to Tyra. And I was like, aren't you fucking here because of her? And I remember during the judging, like I said, it was the first few times she's got the pictures and it's like, you're still in the running towards, and he would like cut every time. And it's like, it's not towards, it's to, you're still in the running to be. And like the fourth or fifth, it's just like, dude, people have their like verbal quirks. It's like, it doesn't matter. Let the woman just speak the way she wants to speak. But Tyra really was much cooler about it than I think I would have been if I had fucking invented the show. But one day, Kimora, like I want to say she got hung up at her atelier. I think there was like some kind of a weird sample issue, and she was late going into hair and makeup, and so the panel was delayed. And he was really furious with her. And they had like, it was like, just around the corner in the other room, like a knockdown drag out, where it was like, oh shit. And I wanted to pull the director aside and be like, she's got 2 giant bodyguards with her, right?
That would kick
it was
your
like,
ass.
yeah. Next panel, that dude was gone.
Ooh. Don't mess with Kimora either.
Well, she and Tyra were like, friends from like when they were babies. And I think Tyra was like, you know what, I'll put up with your bullshit because like somebody at this fucking studio said you're the guy for this. But like once that happened, I think Tyra was like, no.
Yeah. Next on the list is Janice Dickinson.
Oh my God, can I tell Janice stories?
Please. We love Janice stories. We want to talk to Janice one day, hopefully, but we love Janice stories.
I just texted her the other day, and haven't heard back. I wonder if I still have the correct number. I mean, it's like, um, first of all, she bawled after every elimination.
Really?
All that shit that she was doing, she was just playing a character. Like she was just like parroting shit that like old agents like Eileen Ford would have said, or stuff that was said to her, like that thing that she said to Shannon, like you have too many teeth, maybe you should have some removed. That's a real thing, honey.
Really?
Yeah, I think like Joan Crawford famously removed her molars because it caved in her cheeks and accentuated her cheekbone. Like that is shit that women literally did.
Oh, wow.
There was a model from the 60s called Verushka who had giant feet, and she was like, some doctor in Switzerland told me that he could do this surgery, and he mangled her feet. So Janice was just like, you know, saying shit that probably had been said to her by some agent, but she like literally bawled after every elimination. And then we went to Paris, and I got in after everybody else. I think I had wound up having to take like an overnight flight. So when I got to the hotel, I gave her a call, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I think I'm just going to take a nap." And she was like, "Oh, you won't be able to get to sleep." And she's like, "I'm going for lunch at Azadine Elias. Come with me." And I was like, "Janice, I only met the guy once years ago, and I know him to be like very shy and very private. Like, I don't think he'd appreciate you just dropping in with me." And she's like, "No, it's fine." So on the way over, she starts telling stories about when she was living in Paris. And it was like, you know, before the boobs, she was like totally flat chested. And this makeup artist who was huge at the time called Way Bandy used to like to go to this one gay bar that wouldn't allow women. So they would dress her up like a dude, you know, because the voice, and, you know, like slick her hair back, put a hat on her. And so, and she said she would go out all night with Way and then go to Azadine's and like pile up a bunch of clothes on the floor and go to sleep until it was time to go into hair and makeup. And you're thinking like, girl, you did not go into Azadine Elias' atelier and pile up a bunch of his clothes on the floor and sleep. So, and then she was saying that one night after she'd gone to the gay bar dressed as a dude, the guy thought she was a cab driver thought she was a gay guy, and they got into some kind of literal fight, and he basically gay bashed her. So she said she went in to do Azadine's show, and she had a big shiner on her face that couldn't be completely covered. And so she said that she just did the runway where she was like covering her shiner with her hand. She was like, by the end of the show, those other bitches thought I was doing a thing, so they started fucking copying me. And I'm like, girl, exaggerate much. So we get to Elias. He's not thrilled to see me, but he was like, do you know so-and-so? And I was like, yeah. So he stepped out and he came back and he clicked his phone and he was like, Carlene says hello. And I was like, oh shit, he just ran a check on me. Anyway, we sat down to lunch and he starts repeating the fucking stories, talking about like, you know, she went out and he had broken English. And so like the head of the atelier would kind of, she was like, you know, she'd go out of the way, you know, dressed, how do you say, comme des garçons, like a boy. And talked about her coming in with this big fucking shiner. And he was like, and so she walked like this. And then by the end of the show, all the other girls for copying. It was like, oh my God. He was
Janice
like,
is legit.
legit. He was like, she'd come in 5:30 in the morning and just like make a bed with some clothes on the floor. And I was like, oh my God, she literally fucking piled Azadine's clothes up on the floor and slept on them.
Uh-huh.
So that's why, like, years later, it was like a couple of years after we'd done the show together, she was in New York and we were having dinner together. And she told me about the Cosby rape. And I was like, fuck. Because at that point, it's just like, this bitch does not need to lie. Like,
Uh-huh.
and I think the last time we talked is like right before that she was going to be testifying at the trial, and like all that stuff was coming out.
Oh, wow.
And people were saying shit about her, and I just texted her to be like, I'm kind of a contemporaneous witness in a way. Like, you told me this years before any of this stuff started to come out. And I remember when the reports started, you started to see all that stuff, it was like, oh my God, it is literally exactly what Janice said happened.
Oh, wow.
Like, had a headache, gave me a pill, blah, 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 woke up. It's crazy. And then we had a day off in Paris. And she was like, I want to go to a museum. I want to do blah. I want to. And I was like, oh, I've never been there. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, you know how it is. When you're editor, you get on the plane, you go to Paris, you go to work, and you get back on the plane. And she was like, we're doing a tour of Paris. So the next day, she like rolls me out of bed. And her book had just come out, and she was having a reading at like the Shakespeare and Company bookstore on the Rue de Rivoli that evening.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like this running tour of Paris. We had breakfast at Cafe Flore, and then we went to the Louvre, or no, we went to Notre Dame. Oh, and while we were there, she bought me these little, I don't know if you can see them, little medals of the saints.
Oh, wow. You still have it?
Yeah. And she was saying to the girl in the gift shop, she was like, you got a priest here? And I'm like, well, it's Notre Dame, Janice. I'm pretty sure there's a priest here somewhere. And the priest was in the confessional, which was like weirdly in this like plexiglass like box, like you could see in. And he was doing confession with some dude. So Janice is like waiting. We look over and the guy in the confessional starts to bawl, and she's like, fuck, we don't have time for this. This guy's gonna be in there forever. So she goes to the big thing of holy water, and she's like, Hail Mary, in the name of Lagerfeld, Saint Laurent, and blah, blah, blah. Here you go. You got models blessed by a fucking supermodel. Let's go. And we went to the Louvre, and she's like, we don't have time for all this bullshit. I'm just going to run you right up to the Mona Lisa. And she was like, literally, like pushing people out of the way. And then when you get in the room and it's like little, and she's like, her eyes follow you wherever you go. Like, and she was like running around the room. People thought she was like nuts. And then we ran over and had like a tea at the Ritz. Mind you, she's got no makeup on, hair's pulled back. She's in a chic little shearling and a sweater and jeans. So we're going around the corner to where her reading is. She stops in at one of those like perfume and makeup shops. She does her fucking makeup from the sample counter, like flips her head over, like pumps up her hair. And it was like, oh shit, oh, it's Janice Dickinson. And the bookstore was fucking packed. Like people were waiting outside. People couldn't get in. Like afterwards, there were like 40-year-old women that had like old tear sheets from French Elle that they'd pulled out when they were like 15 years old and saved and brought for her to sign.
Oh, wow.
Like people in Paris, I always kind of thought that once her kids kind of grew up and and kind of left the nest that she would like have a little like place in Paris,
Mm-hmm.
a little pied a terre. Um, but yeah, she's fucking rad. I love her so much.
Thank you so much for these Janice Dickinson stories. It's so amazing. I was so thoroughly entertained. Shout out to Janice Dickinson. We're manifesting that one day Janice Dickinson can grace my top model anthology with her present. I'm praying for it. I'm praying for that it happens one day.
She kind of was involved with me meeting my husband too.
Oh, nice. And congrats.
Oh, my husband's Brent from CoverGirl. He was on the show a few times. He was the CoverGirl rep that would come when they were doing the CoverGirl shoots.
Oh, wow. Congratulations, first of all.
Thanks.
No, you're so welcome.
It's been like 17 years now.
Yes, congratulations. That's dope. Shout out to Janice Dickinson. Next on the list is the host creator, Tyra Banks herself.
I mean, she's such a lovely girl, right? Girl, she's a woman, but so sweet, so nice. You know, like I said, always even keeled. She put up with that asshole dude, like until he fucked with her friend, and then she was like, no, you know what I mean? Like she's like, I'm gonna toe the line. And she worked really hard, she struggled a little bit in the beginning, right? I mean, she obviously been modeling forever. She's done a ton of commercials. She was acting at that point too. But still, like, she is producing and leading a television show.
Big shoes.
Yeah, and she worked really hard. And you could tell, I think, in that first season that, like, she kind of, struggled a little bit here and there. Like, there was a lot of voiceover. There was a lot of VO where they had to kind of go back in and loop in a line here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But, I thought she carried it off really well and thought she made some entertaining television.
What are your thoughts on Ken Mock, longtime top executive producer of Top Model?
I was more kind of in Dana Gabriel's stable. I interacted with Ken a little bit here and there. He seemed like a sweet dad. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He had like a dad vibe.
Shout out to Ken Mock. All right. Well, thank you. You got through Top Model and Team Roll Call. I'm going to jump through these fan questions, and then I'm going to get you out of here. So, Alec McCleskey wants to know, they're saying, hiya, do you remember who you voted to win during the final judging, and who do you remember each judge voted for?
I definitely voted for Adrienne. I don't remember if it was unanimous or not. Yeah, I can't really remember if anybody voted for Shannon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, didn't it kind of seem obvious to everybody at that point that it was Adrienne?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you remember about voting? Like, was it a democracy? Everyone's vote was equal? Whoever got the least amount of votes went home? Was that how it worked?
Yeah, it was definitely very democratic that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember. I mean, Janice was always like, rawr. um, oh, the other funny Janice story, that the final two, we get in, we're at the table, we're waiting, and the two photos are up. Janice again was like, those are the worst fucking pictures I've ever seen in my life. Who the fuck took these pictures? And at that point, Tyra walked in, and Tyra was like, I did. And Janice was like, well, sweetie, you paid me for an opinion.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Another fan question. People wanted to know, did you notice at all any tension between Tyra and Janice? You know, during the time that the show was on and Janice was on, and years after, there were like a lot of reports that Janice and Tyra used to get into it, and Janice even did like a public apology. I think it was on Oprah's own, I think one time, like years later, apologizing to Tyra. During your time on Cycle 1, did you notice any feuding between them?
Oh, yeah. 100%. They fought
Well,
all the time.
really? Over what?
I mean, you name it. Like Janice was thought all the photography was terrible. Janice did not think Robin should have been in the competition, only because Janice was like, it's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you want to do a cycle of all plus girl, you know, Janice had reasons for everything. But it's funny. When I was rewatching it, I may have had an edible or two, and it suddenly occurred to me, I was like, that was all bullshit. Like they were putting all of that on for the camera, right? Like Janice is no dummy. Like Tyra fucking hired her. Like she's not gonna fight with the woman that's signing her check. You know what I mean? I was like, oh shit, those two bitches fucking were doing all of that for the camera, right? Tension on the judging panel makes good TV. I mean, I don't think they were like friends, like, you know, calling each other at home, like, hey girl, like, great day today. But I think a lot of that was just like antics for the camera.
Gotcha.
It suddenly occurred to me, I was like, oh my God, they were faking all of that.
Oh, okay. You heard it. You heard it here, guys. So followers Games 101 is saying, when you said to Elyse, well, you have no body fat on you, so you have no insulation. In the show, it appeared to be part of the Elyse having an eating disorder storyline. Did you really see it as something negative?
Okay, I have to be honest, like in when I'm casting my own stuff, I'm very sensitive about like when girls look too thin. I don't like I don't like the signal that sends. And I'm from like the generation where it's like it was like the Janice body, the Tyra body, right? The glam is on. So yeah, like I said, I'm not a doctor. I can't like diagnose anybody, but she did not look well to me.
Gotcha.
That's all I can say.
Darren Christopher _ 1996 is asking, who did you want to win Cycle 1?
Well, like I said, from the jump, it was Ebony, Cassie, Adrienne, and Nicole really kind of were the standouts for me. And then as time went on and more cuts happened, it really kind of seemed like Adrienne.
What are your thoughts, creative thoughts, on the caliber of photo shoots that happened on Cycle 1? We had like 2 bikini photo shoots, the snake, the skin commercial, the snake, the Parisian with the male model, then they were nude and the oiled and the black and white photos. What are your thoughts on like all of those creative, the creative behind the photo shoots?
I think there was one good one.
Which was
the snake shoot. But that was like Troy Ward, who was, I think, wasn't that Troy Ward? Um, who's kind of a big photographer. Like they,
Mhm.
that was like the one. Um, the other ones I just like, um, like the movement shoot, right? They had that super fine football player, right? And then when you see the images, like he's in shot, like, are you gonna fucking like that guy? Like,
Uh-huh.
do you know what I mean? There was just like some real like basic bad photography.
Oh my
I
God.
can't. I feel badly because it's like in that live with like Adrienne and um what's her face, the Bible thumper. Um,
Shannon.
they talk about how much they love their pictures, and I remember when Shannon came to see me at Mary Claire, I was like, "Girl, you need to get rid of all of these photographs.
Uh-huh.
Um, they're not doing you any favors."
You being a professional in the industry, what was the top model stigma like? We've heard many girls say they went on the show and they got all these pictures, and then once they finished the show and got out there in the real world, a lot of people were advising them take these photos out, redo this, don't even mention you were on the show. What was your experience like?
In terms of the girls after the show,
Yeah, well, the stigma that girls, models who have been on that show, the stigma that they got.
I mean, I don't necessarily know how to, because as the seasons went on, like at a certain point they started getting like really major photographers,
Mhm.
um and so some of those shoots were like extraordinary.
Mhm.
um I do think like right through the end they were really over retouched. Like the girl has a pore on her face, like we'd like to see it in a picture.
Mhm.
um but for sure, um that first season, like I legit told Shannon, I was like, get rid of all these pictures.
Yeah.
And I was like, you just came off like a hit television show. Like there's photographers that would charge to test you, but you probably would get it for free at this moment. Like, go get some new pictures.
Mhm. And Martin wants to know, can you ask Beau if he has ever regretted the judgings that were so focused on weight and age? Robin being 26 and quote unquote plus size was the topic of every judging.
I had no problem with Robin's age
Mm-hmm.
at all. Um, and and like I said, I really advocated for her. Like um, I was like looking for that change in the industry. And then when I went on to become the style director at 17, and Brent called me when I think they were L Girl for a while
Mm-hmm.
was the cover. And when L Girl folded, he was like, "Do you think you can get a deal for us to do 17?" And I was like, "Sure." Um, and so I did a bunch of covers with girls from the later seasons, and I really um, wasn't on panel and didn't have a vote, but I really pushed the editor. I think it was cycle 10. It was like, we should fight like fucking crazy to get Whitney. She did the best cover shoot. Her pictures inside the book. She did like a cute kind of like retro pinup swimsuit story. She was a doll. I really loved her. And I think it was like about fucking time.
Yeah. Wow. And
Oh my
when
God,
you
you know
did
who else I
win,
did really cute pictures with was Carrie D. Have you ever seen her 17 magazine cover?
yes, from the one she did on the show.
Yeah,
Yes. Uh huh.
super cute.
Beautiful.
She
Yeah, it
sold a
is
lot
beautiful.
of issues.
You said it sold a lot.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Shout out to Carrie D. Shout out to Carrie D. Okay. Almost done. I want to know. Here's a little fun. This is from the Lost Levi, and they're asking, I want to know his take on Robin's boobs going round and round, up and down. So at panel, when Robin refused to pose nude like Shannon did, Tyra fires back at her by saying that Mr. J told her a story of Robin exposing herself to him and shaking her boobs up and down, round and round. However she described it. What was your reaction sitting there hearing all of this story being just thrown out there like that?
Again, like, I think there were a lot of folks on production that did not appreciate the fact that I broke all the time, because like shit like that happened every 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, and I think I said to her too, like I was really bummed out. It's like, you should go fucking represent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you should have gotten your like Botticelli girl body all up there. And I just wish somebody had the wherewithal to say, like, this is an opportunity for you to like change the dialogue.
Yeah.
And it was really, and I think if somebody had put it that way to her in that moment, she would have been like, okay, fuck yeah, I'm going to take my clothes off. And I think if she'd done that, then Shannon might have like been like, okay, well, she's going to do it. I'm going to, anyway.
And
It's just one of those things where.
Can you imagine a universe where Robin and Shannon actually did the photo shoot? And Robin like smashed it. Robin could have been like in a top 3, maybe the final 2.
Maybe. I think Robin might have wound up in the final 2 if she had done that shoot.
Yeah. Because Robin was doing a good job.
I thought Robin was much better in photos than Shannon was.
Ooh.
I mean, Robin was gorgeous.
Yeah, no, Shannon is gorgeous, but Robin was pretty. Like, she was gorgeous. She was breathtaking. She was beautiful, beautiful. Those full lips and her cheekbones were ridiculous. And
skin like a baby.
Yeah,
that was the thing. Like my grandmother used to say, like, skin like a baby bottom. She literally had like gorgeous skin.
What's your reaction to what happened to Adrienne after she won? There was a fallout with Tyra. There were claims that she did not get all of her prize money. And then I don't know if you watched the show, but like she basically kind of got like erased from the show as one of the winners. They always kind of started off showing the earliest winner being Joanna. What's your reaction to her fallout with Top Model?
I think it's really regrettable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the thing is, like, I don't know who put the deal together with Revlon, where if at the end they could just be like, no, we don't like that girl, so we're not going to fork up because that's sort of what has been intimated by different people. So I don't know, where that fell through the cracks, that it's like, it's an airtight contract and the girl that we choose. And at the end of the day, a lot of those CoverGirl campaign pictures later on, it's like, what would they run for a week or so in Us Weekly at the time of the it's like, it doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, God, it's gotta feel really fucking shitty for her. I mean, through the whole thing, she's like, I need this money. I need to save my mom's house. And like, I mean, it's CBS fucking Studios. Just like, pony up the dough. Like, your people clearly fucked the deal up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the girl needs to get paid for winning the fucking prize.
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing that she claims went down with Tyra seems really intense and unfortunate. Like, you know, again, like at that point, it's like somebody should have been taking care of her.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that should never have been able to happen. Because what did she say in that lie? She called her a bitch or something.
Mm-hmm. She said she called her a bitch.
That should never have happened. Like somebody should have prevented her from, you know what I mean? Like stepped in, let cooler heads prevail. Anyway, I was really floored to find out that that she didn't do the Revlon thing, which I think is unfortunate, but it seems like the show could have like made up for it somehow. I don't know.
Some type of way. Just slightly confused is asking. I remember that Beau was featured briefly in cycle 13 and 14 during the 17 magazine photo shoot. What was it like to come back on set after so many years?
Well, I really wasn't. I don't think I was even on. I think I may have been on camp. Like you may have seen me. But you know, at that point, I remember Dana Gabriel being like, "Are you sure you don't want us to put a mic on you?" And I'm like, "Good, thanks." Because also, I think it was like the editor-in-chief, which seemed more appropriate to me. Who is also a woman. And to me, it just seemed like, okay, it seems better that is the person that's mic'd and appears on camera. But yeah, I mean, at that point, I mean, it was a well-oiled machine. So, you know, it was enjoyable. We had fun.
Why didn't you come back after cycle 1?
I wasn't asked.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's like I was saying, like when Mr. J turned up in that full face of makeup, I was like, you know, they want like a flamboyant character, and this was not me.
So Top Model Cycle 1 debuts. It becomes the latest and greatest pop culture phenomenon. Did it do anything great for your career as a fashion editor?
Not really.
Yikes.
I mean, which is, you know, neither here nor there. But, you know, looking back, you know, fun was had.
You had fun. Good. And so you're not back for cycle 2. What did you do? Like, what have you been doing all these years?
I stayed at Mary Claire for another couple of years. And then when Hearst Magazines acquired 17 from Prime Media, I went over there as style director when they were trying to kind of reboot the magazine. It was like kind of a dying swan at that point. And that was super fun. And then along the way, I met and got together with my husband. And at one point, he got an opportunity to go to Los Angeles. And he was like, but if you're freelance, you can kind of work wherever you want.
Yeah.
So I left the magazine. I still contributed, like doing covers and stuff for them for another few years. And we lived in Los Angeles for a few years. moved back to New York. And I kind of started just doing a lot of really commercial work. We bought a little house out on Long Island, and I spent a few years kind of like working, making the house over. You know, and then the 2016 election happened, and I went down the fucking Twitter rabbit hole with everybody else, right? It's like, spent my time like watching MSNBC and anger tweeting. And then we wound up moving back to Cali right before lockdown.
Gotcha. Okay, so I heard you say earlier that your husband was the CoverGirl rep that went to the show and represented the brand. There's been a lot of speculation throughout the years, and I would not be doing my job if I did not ask you. Do you know anything about CoverGirl heavily influencing who won the show? Janice Dickinson went on record and said that CoverGirl is the one who chose the winner.
I don't think that's true. I mean, I think they definitely have a voice. I mean, listen, it's one of the most giant mass market cosmetic brands on the planet, right? So it's like, you know, if the CoverGirl folks are like, this girl is great, like you definitely take that into consideration. But I know for a fact that like, because Brent was the rep, I know for a fact that it wasn't like, well, what Brent says goes.
Gotcha.
I know there was even some creative that the show came up with that he wanted to kill, but you know, it's not the CoverGirl show.
Gotcha. Thank you for clearing that out for us. Thank you. I want to know what is your reaction to a lot of the news articles that come out now about Top Model? Many of them not so nice about the show, about Tyra, and about the way the show was ran. What's your reaction seeing these things?
Well, you know, it's like we talked about that earlier, right? It's just like, I mean, when Kate Taylor from Business Insider and I spoke, I was like, you know, in hindsight, are there things that might seem problematic, you know? But like, I could go fucking find an episode of The Golden Girls that's problematic as fuck. You know what I mean? It's like, if we look back at every old TV show, it's like, hi, what about that reality show where they made people eat bugs and shit?
X Factor.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
and balls.
You know, it's just like, you know, and a lot of, you know, there was a lot in that piece about you know, girls getting injured from like makeover stuff, but doesn't that happen in the real world all the time? Like somebody will have like a bad reaction to a product, or you know, something goes wrong with the weave and a chunk of hair doesn't that stuff happen? I don't know.
I don't know. I ain't never gone to a hair salon. I don't know.
Anyway, you know, honestly, it's just like, I know for a fact that nobody associated with that show, like, set out to do anything to hurt a girl.
Right.
And from the get-go, Tyra was all about diversity and inclusion. And in fact, the cast of her shows was in fact way more diverse than the industry really was at the time. And, the culture had been changing already at that point. Like, I think it was like 2000 or 2001. Like suddenly there was like a plus size model, curvy girl photographed by Helmut Newton for Vogue. Like the culture was starting to shift already. But, I think Tyra did a lot to really push that change.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I wonder, like, um, would we have like an Adele or a Lizzo if it weren't for the agenda that Tyra pushed? You know what I mean? It's like,
Wow.
I don't know. I think there's been some positive. I mean, it's funny. I did a Rimmel campaign a
Mm-hmm.
couple of years ago, and we cast curvy girls, and it was like there was like something like 17 girls all together. We had one white girl. And it's like years ago, like the casting process would be like, okay, we've got our black girl. You know what I mean? And then on this shoot, it was like all Latinas, it was all black girls, um, all size girls. You have to say that ANTM had to contribute to that cultural shift slightly. It was on
Mm-hmm.
everyone's television every week.
Yeah, for years. 4 years. My last question to you, my friend, is if you were standing before Tyra Banks right now today, what would you say to her?
I would say stop fucking apologizing.
Ooh!
I mean, it's also that thing of like, it's always, I want women in general to stop fucking apologizing. But it's like, she's done some interviews, she's come out and she's, said like, wish I'd done something different here and there. But it's like, girl, just stop. Stop apologizing.
Yeah. I
You
think she's
did.
done. She doesn't really talk about it anymore. She's like, I think she's done.
I feel like after I watched a couple of your videos on YouTube, during the scroll, like I saw like she'd done like some kind of like Access Hollywood or some kind of thing where she was like, yeah. And it's like, just stop apologizing.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say before I let you go? You've done an amazing job. When they watch this, they are going to eat this up. You're going to be like Santa Claus in the middle of hot summer July in El Paso, Texas right now.
No, I think I'm good. I just think it's hilarious that 20 years later, people are still interested.
Yes. I want to thank you so much for sharing your time, space, and energy with me. I am forever grateful. I enjoyed this. I know my friends on the internet are going to enjoy this. I'm sending you positive energy. And if we were live right now, I will tell everyone stand up and give Beau a huge round of applause for giving us an amazing, amazing chat about his time on America's Next Top Model Cycle 1. He has added another notch in our judges' belt, and we are grateful. I thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Guys, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, be sure to parade and tingle. Bye.
Come home.